Welcome to Season 4 of the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, where we explore the local arts culture and community in the Lehigh Valley.
We'll be doing this through conversations with individual artists, administrators, musicians, poets, actors, and arts and cultural organizations. We'll discuss all types of mediums with the goal of enriching local arts culture.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. I'm Ben, and this week I have the privilege of interviewing Danielle Djuro-Goiricelaya. Danielle is a native of Venezuela and was the second of three sons of a Cuban Basque mother and first-generation Ukrainian Russian father. He was raised in a colorful, multicultural home where different languages were spoken and traditions upheld, opening the window of his imagination and awakening his artistic soul and curiosity from an early age. In 2004, due to the turbulent political climate in Venezuela, Danielle and his family received political asylum and moved to the United States. As an interdisciplinary artist, he describes his process as Chromatic Immersion Journeys. He uses the language of color to develop works through different concrete forms, such as pigments, materials, and textiles, as well as non-tangible forms such as light and performance. Bodies of work in which he involves political, social, aesthetic, and universal issues. Aesthetically, he has a great influence by the arts and artists of the Wayu people. He grew up as a child exposed to the work of Venezuelan artists such as Armando Reveron, Carlos Cruz Diaz, Jesus Soto, Francisco Hong, Leah de Bermudez, and many others. He learned directly from Frank O'Kane in the Art Student League, New York. Danielle was featured in Italian L'Uomo Vogue as one of New York's up-and-coming artists. Danielle is the art director and co-founder of the art community project El Patio de Mi Casa and residency program La Casita de Bamboo. Today, Danielle lives in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, working in both his studio, sharing with people the power of emotional growth through art making, and as a community engagement and arts integration manager for Arts Academy Elementary Charter School in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He is also the art commissioner of the Allentown Arts Commission and the Art Community and Action Fellow with the Allentown Arts Museum. Danielle wanted to give a special shout out to the city of Allentown as well as its mayor, Matthew Turk. Well, Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here.
How did you get here? You have been all over the world.
How much time do we have?
If we had to break it down, just,
let's do like very small snapshots.
Sounds good.
I'm originally from Venezuela, moved when I was 24 in 2004 to Connecticut. From Connecticut, 6 months later, I jumped to New York, in where was my home until 2020. In 2020, I came to the Lehigh Valley to stay with my friends Pam and John for a week in the ceremony years. That became 9 months. Then I tried to go back to New York, and that never happened. And the rest is history. I created something new.
How long would you classify yourself as an artist for?
How long?
Yeah.
I now can say that since I was a child, like now that I have been exposed to kindergartners, yes, since that age, since I remember I was an artist. And I think that that's what I will be.
Awesome.
Or what we will be.
Yeah. So you wear many hats.
Many.
Both physically and metaphorically.
Yes.
There's so much to cover, and so I kind of want to break it down just by role or community.
Perfect.
So I would love to start with what you just said there. With so you're a teacher?
Yes. So I work in Arts Academy Elementary Charter School. I started actually in 2022. I started working with them as an IST for the arts department. Later on, I had the opportunity to become an art teacher, and little by little, my role changed into what is called the Arts Integration and Community Engagement Manager. I do not longer teach in a classroom, but what I do all day long at Arts Academy is finding ways to integrate art. The reason why is that our school provides 2 hours of art making every day to every single student, and that is 30 minutes of music, 30 minutes of dance, 30 minutes of visual arts, and 30 minutes of theater. And the biggest opportunity that we have is to use all those classes for the students to reinforce what they're learning in science, reinforce what they're learning in history. So arts integration is having the ability to bring the academic teacher to play with the art teacher for them to create this environments in where students can absorb information in different ways through a song, through a play, through a dance, or an art piece.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think that title and role is really cool. We have a number of friends that have both come on the podcast and that we know outside of the podcast that also work at other art schools, charter art schools, etc. And when we asked them about this position, they said our school doesn't have that. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more just about how you found yourself in that role there.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, as I said, we created something new. I think that my background was not education. I did have, back in Venezuela a long time ago, I had the opportunity to work with one of the local museums in my city, developing actually an educational program that the museum will be providing to different schools, utilizing visual curriculum strategies for students from K to 5 to have the ability to develop visual critical thinking. So what I wanted to do, what I did, the first thing that I started doing in the school in Allentown, in Arts Academy, was to utilize those times that I had the ability to engage with the students and facilitating this curriculum that I knew from before. But later on, I had the ability to say, hey, I'm not an art teacher, meaning I didn't go to school to teach art, but I'm an artist. I went to school to be an artist. And Arts Academy was nothing very welcoming. I mean, I was coming with more contemporary art ideas to have the students engage. I mean, I started teaching my first graders the rice counting ceremony for Marina Abramovich and teaching them about the work of a powerful artist like her and teaching them the work of, international artists, not only the ones that we always hear about, that is Frida or so on, but also showing them about, Nick Cage and the moving outfits and teaching them that art is not only those commercial things that we see now. Art is something that keeps evolving, and it's as long as you're using the premises of creating something new, that's it. That's art.
The idea of art education, especially for those very, very young, is one that I find particularly fascinating. There are so many different schools of thought on education, and some that go as far as to say, I don't believe we should have art education until they develop a little bit more. Instead, we should sub that out for how to understand the world around you. We should dedicate 45 minutes every day to explaining tangible emotions, feelings, textures. That way, when they do finally start to learn about art, they have more of a basis for it. But that's a very extreme approach.
Yes. Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's funny because it's so extreme that at the same time is you just describe what everything that art is.
Yeah.
You can you learn how to regulate, you learn, it's so funny because we're coming still, I know it's 2024, but we are still coming out of a pandemic, and specifically in the education world, it's okay, now we're catching up to whatever that was. Yeah. We as adults are still digesting it, because not processing, we're not machines. We digest things. And our little ones are still digesting all this. Students need more art to develop social skills. And especially if it's collective art making, that's what they need to heal. I mean, they have no social cues these days. Yeah. They're coming from isolation, literally. So art is what provides safe spaces for all the students to explore. There's no right or wrong. That's where you develop this human that still needs a little bit of molding around, So all those opportunities that you were describing that the standard academic system wants to utilize, you can do all that by doing art or making art.
Yeah, absolutely. When I say art education, that takes so many different forms depending on who you ask. When I say that to you, what kind of form does that take on? What does that mean?
That's a really good question. It's interesting because it's I would say the first thing that I hear was the academic art that I was exposed to when, especially the first thing that comes out is like, high school level, like art history and
Sure.
like, what other civilizations were coming.
Yeah.
But for me, I think that was something that I had as a balance to then start to understand that, yes, that's what other people was doing. What about what is happening now and how do you tell the stories of now?
Sure.
And I feel that in arts education, there's two different ways of seeing things. You can be an art teacher or you can be a teaching artist. And those will be the two different schools of thoughts. And I think that I believe more in a teaching artist approach as long as the art teacher is also collaborating.
Keeping that definition and that idea in mind, how would you describe your art education?
My art education, meaning how I got here or what has been my journey? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Taking both into account the institutional approach as well as the out of institution.
Of course. I went to school in Venezuela to actually interior design, believe it or not. My school didn't have at that time the School of Fine Arts, but I did everything that I could in technical level to accomplish what it was necessary at the time. Then when I moved to the U.S., in New York, I went to the Art Student Leagues in New York for a couple of years, specifically under Frank O'Kane. That is an amazing, amazing teacher that still teaches there. And God, that man changed my life with his classes. But then I really started to just self-develop and, doing research and exploring. I had the opportunity to do my first art residency in San Cristobal de las Casas, Mexico. And I think that seeing that analogy in between a scientist and an artist and seeing the opportunity to create in a lab setting really changed my perspective and also my voice as an artist. And I feel that it really allowed me to see that it was not only about painting, it was more about creating bodies of work that are the reflection of stories that I'm trying to tell the audience. And sometimes it's a performance, sometimes it's a combination of everything. Sometimes it could be just a small piece that is being left behind.
Yeah.
And not every art that I create it's documented to be sold or I make it and I consider them my little art installations that sometimes people would know.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. I want to use that as a jumping off point to talk about your chromatic immersion journeys.
Oh, yes.
which was a term that was brought up on the Queer Creatives podcast.
Yes.
And I loved it.
Yes. It's so funny. I can give you a story and growing up, one of my favorite movies is called The Phantom Tollbooth. And is the one that I like, it was Chuck Jones, the one who made the animation. And it was like Mary Poppins styles. It's like part of the movie is like movie and part of the movie is cartoons. But anyhow, in the book, there's this character called Chroma the Great. And Chroma the Great, his assignment was to turn on the sunrises and the sunsets every day.
Yeah.
So for me, the chromatic journeys are a little bit like that. It's like seeing all these possibilities with colors around me, and it could be painting, it could be video, it could be the way I dress, it could be many things. And a chromatic journey immersion is to create those environments now for people to explore in within that new way that they're discovering themselves. Because usually I like the audience to participate in the painting or in the work. Mm-hmm. The work is not finished until the experience of the audience is created.
Yeah. So how do we get from there to chromatic revolutions?
A chromatic revolution, yes. So the chromatic revolution, it's a project that I have been working actually for quite some time. It's all about my favorite color, that is the color red. For a long time, it has been a conversation, not only an active conversation, but has been the opportunity to connect with different communities and always find something that we all cherish, that is the experience of a color. Originally from Venezuela, of course, there's a lot of history with dictatorships and taking that color, Then, if you go down in history, all the troublemakers had that color too. And then we find ourselves in a new political climate and where very specific color is being worn in very specific hats.
Yeah.
So I think that is also creating those environments and where it doesn't matter what you believe in. At the end of the day, that color doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone. So what I really want is to, at the end of the day, have everyone to feel comfortable by just experiencing colors without having to associate it with anything else, specifically if it's something that has a negative agenda or so on.
Yeah. So that installation has kind of spanned from Burning Man all the way to China.
Yes. It has been in everywhere. It has been in Austria. Yeah, it has been. It has been something else.
That's so cool.
Yes.
What are a few places that you think best exemplify the theme, message, and conversations that you aim to develop through that installation?
Oh my God. It was very interesting. That's an amazing question, actually, because in New York, the first time that I started doing it was in New York. And I think that I did as a performance piece for 22 days. I will run around the park and knit one of the bellotas that is inspired in the arts and crafts of the Wayu people in Venezuela, and then write a little poem and then leave them. And the idea was to find safe spots or people to save this precious little item that I made. But then at the end of that first cycle, I really wanted to make a statement, and I went to what it used to be, the Venezuelan consulate in New York, and I demanded to share the color red because it was not theirs, it was not mine, it was ours. So I wanted to make that statement, and I think that community was empowered by that message. Then I have a lot of friends, specifically one of my great friends, Camilo. He has been super supportive of this project since the beginning because he's originally from Colombia and I'm from Venezuela, and we have the Wayu people in between. So we gave Camilo and my partner John and a lot of friends different bellotas, and they will take them to other parts of the world. I didn't go physically to China to put that one, but my friend Camilo put it in there. I have friends that brought them to different installations in Berlin. I had the opportunity to go to Austria and do it in different cities in Austria too. And it's finding all those people that had the same experience with the color red, and then just hold that safe space to, in a very organic way, heal, if you may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the past, you've mentioned that, if anything, you really wanted that installation to spark conversation on finding middle ground.
Yes.
What kind of conversations were you able to find yourself a part of that reached that conclusion?
Oh my God. You know what is so funny? Yes. In Burning Man, actually, it was very interesting because what we did is that, of course, I had, again, my friend Camilo and, all the friends that we went together to this. They were all super organized people, and I was the artist of the camp. So thanks to the support of people with spreadsheets and very organized human beings, I was able to teach them how to knit bellotas Wayu. And from different parts of the world, they made as many as they had. They talked to friends, and they have bellotas making parties with their friends, and we brought hundreds of these ones to Burning Man. But we also were wearing, I had made hats, just like the hats that I will not even say the phrase, but just like those, but utilizing the same font. And instead of saying the message, it will say, "Take back the red." And of course, we are on bikes in Burning Man, and the last thing that you can imagine is that you're going to see that hat. But then people will come and have this reaction, and then we'll really read it, and it just turns into a hug, and it's yes, I reclaim it. I want to take back the experience of the color. It's it belonged to Bart Simpson before anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's so, I think that those are powerful conversations, and I think that I thought that project was going to sleep, and then the Lehigh Valley opened it up again, and it gave me the museum, the Allentown Art Museum, gave me this amazing opportunity with the fellowship, in where I really took this project and I wanted to I have different platforms. Well, I had never done improv, but I guess I'm doing improv, and I'm going to do the storytelling of this. And I never danced or sang, but I guess I'm going to do this. So it has been the comfort zone to continue exploring and building other things. And it was amazing because the fellowship in the museum gave me the space for people to learn how to make them. And then we make hundreds of them. And then those were installed in the art community project installation that I made as the closing of the exhibition with the Allentown Arts Museum. So it has been the story that never ends. We're in the works of making a book, actually, a storytelling book inspired by the Chromatic Revolution. So stay tuned.
Well, speaking of, you brought some of your friends into that. You've also brought a lot of your friends into the art world and explored their work through Patio de mi Casa.
Yes.
Tell me about that. That is an amazing ongoing project as well.
Oh my God. Thank you. So El Patio de mi Casa, or the backyard of our home, it's a project that my partner, John Jepson, and myself started doing back in New York. One of my dearest friends and artists that I admire, the power of his voice and his work, his name is Jose Peroso. He was coming to New York. I really wanted my friends that were in the interior design world and art supporters in the city to like see his work, because I thought he had an amazing voice, and I just wanted them to learn about it and maybe buy something from him. You never know, you know? So I remember Jose came and he brought his work. He curated his own show in literally an empty apartment because we haven't even moved in. It was January 6th. There was snow everywhere. And I'm like, maybe 10 people will show up. And we had a backyard in this apartment in New York that, it was a New York backyard. Let's manage expectation. But the fact that all these people show up in the middle of the winter in a snowstorm and saw their work, it was so inspiring that then it became like this addiction. I was like, I want to continue doing this. And we just did it for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Without asking for funding. I mean, there was like few times that, I was like, well, maybe somebody can pay for some of the alcohol that people is having. But then we're like, it just getting too complicated. Bring your best vice. It became we will give you some guarapita, that is, rum and punch from Venezuela, some plantain chips or popcorn, and whatever you're going to drink, you bring it. We'll have great art. But it was amazing, actually. It became our little lab, if you may. And also seeing other people using my studio and my backyard was the perfect lesson too. It will be like, I never thought of that. So, it was like very giving on both ways. And I think that that's where I started to say that we play, create, teach, and grow together. I think I may be missing one of those in them, but it's kind of the idea. It's at the end of the day, we play and teach and grow together. I'll send you the right one.
Yeah. Well, with both adults and children, you have encouraged them to discover or rediscover their sense of play.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about what you think the intrinsic connection is between art and play.
Yes. I think that it's not even connected. It's the same. It's integral. For me, that's art. These days. I mean, yes, there's art education, there's art history, there's art techniques, but how do I put this? When I moved into the Lehigh Valley, I started saying, you can't write art without art. And it was almost like, very strong statement. And lately I keep saying, you can only write art with art. So it has to be also on that approach. And I think that that's the connection. And when you are fulfilled in your heart and your soul and whatever you believe in, and you are letting go this like right or wrong or aiming for success or defining success, you are holding back so many opportunities to just play and explore and discover. I mean, I believe that the beginning of creating starts at the end of knowing. You don't need to know the end result. Yes, you want to make sure that nobody's going to get killed or damaged. But besides that, enjoy the process. Have fun with the process and play with the process. My dear friend Alison Cusser used my studio a couple of months ago. And I wrote in my wall that everybody comes and paint. I have a phrase that it says, give me what it makes you feel and keep what it makes you think. That is more like, if you're going to tell me something about my work, tell me what is your emotional reaction to this instead of what is the next step.
Yeah.
And she added a very cute note that I want to say thank you, that it says, follow your work. It's like, and it's true, if you're giving your work the direction, you're missing the opportunity to follow your work. Your work is the one that's going to speak to you. So that's where I'm standing in these days with play.
Yeah.
It has been very fun because I had led the same activities that I do in seminars for play and creativity. I do it same for elementary students to corporate America adults.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how for the kids it's easier to remember how to play, when for adults there's so many rules that they're terrified of art making. So
Absolutely. What role do you think meditation has in aiding that process?
a great one. It's also an integral part of my morning art making. I call them art making meditations. I like to, these days I have a very specific location in our backyard that is a table that is removed from the studio. It's almost like its own thing. And in there, I try to go almost every day. It doesn't happen every day. But even in the cold winter, or even if it's raining, I go to that table. I gather things around, and it could be feathers, it could be fruit, it could be the charcoal that is left. And I just play. And, I'm aware of my breathing patterns. I'm aware of the sounds of nature. I'm aware of smells and sensory experience by just being there in the sunrise or in the sunset.
Yeah.
And I just create these compositions that are not expected to get anybody's validation, or it's more like I'm following what the media is telling me today.
Did that process directly lead to your organic compositions?
Yes, that's exactly. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's exactly it. Organic compositions. It's a curated version of that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, is the Mural de Flores, is that also at your house?
No, that one is not in my house anymore, but it's actually it's interesting that you're asking. So this was developed during the pandemic. What it is until today the property of John and Pam Jepson, that are my dear friends. During the pandemic, they allowed me to follow this Armando Reveron dream that I will write down the name so you can explore. That it was a Venezuelan artist that basically removed itself from society. There was a little bit of mental illness there, but we need to tap into madness to create greatness. But he isolated himself and created this little castles called castilletes that were like ephemeral structures, and he will paint and create his world and so on. I didn't go that far, close enough. But I had the great support of my friend John Jepson. I told him one day that I wanted to create a wall that I can put flowers, and that I was looking for the structure to collapse. And my friend John is an engineer. He was like, you want to build something that is going to collapse? And I'm like, yeah, that's a lesson. We're going to let Mother Nature take over. And what I love is that he said a couple of weeks ago, it's like, I heard what you said, and then I said, you know what? Yes. So it was sitting in a beautiful, beautiful part of the property that it was next to a pond. So all my interaction will be with the pond and nature in that aspect. I will go every morning like it was my job. I will make bricks out of clay and mud that I collected and put seeds, then put them in the structure, water them down, and just see how Mother Nature will create. I do have still parts of the structure because at some point collapsed. So I saved some of the windows and some of the media that gave into what Mother Nature wanted it to happen with the media. So that may be shown sometime.
Yeah. You have an upcoming event with the Allentown Art Museum.
Yes.
And talk to me about how that gets brought into the fold of the whole thing.
Oh my God, yeah. So the great project, it's a collaboration project that started actually during the pandemic at the house of Pam and John. The project that we're showcasing is called La Sinfonía del Muro de Flores, which is series of melodies inspired by the storytelling and visual compositions that I collected during the pandemic. A lot of the pieces have that magical inspiration of sounds of nature and patterns that can be perceived in nature, sounds, movement, visual colors, and even the rhythms and the way that different animals as a population move from one side of the world to the other world. So I started this project during the pandemic. The first player that I had actually that was a great friend was Alejandro Palma. He and I, during the pandemic, I couldn't really see him. He was in New York, and I was like, you know what? I have this crazy game. It's called La Balada del Diente de León, or the Ballad of the Dandelion. I created these patterns. I extracted compositions that had a visual harmony from my paintings, overlapped them in a grid, and I created like a little story and sent it to him. And Ale was amazing. He created this beautiful composition, and then that fueled me to do more of them. Years moved forward. I had this amazing opportunity with a museum. I moved to the Lehigh Valley, and the project was like in the back of my head. I was like, oh, we have this music, we have this documentation, and it was during the fellowship that I said, I kind of want to tell the story of the Wall of Flowers, that at the end of the day, the main lesson that I took out of it is, we are a lot of times living in a society where other people's fears and judgment and just fear. At the end of the day, everything is fear. Are projected into like walls, and you're just trapped into the fear of other people. And you can limit yourself by surrounding yourself with those kind of walls. Or you can create wall of flowers around you that is not that are delicate or weak. If anything, they give you the best lesson that is ever changing. Everything constantly changes and adapts. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I have from that art installation. And going back to 2024, what we're doing on May the 4th, because May the 4th be with you, is that we're showcasing a part of the great collaboration with the Lehigh Valley Chamber Orchestra. The compositions that we will be listening are by Ignacio, and I will give you the last name so we can say it properly, and the director of the Lehigh Valley Chamber Orchestra, Nicolas Gomez. I'll give you also his name. And I'm excited because I have two friends that are performers also performing that day. And there will be a collection of all the video journaling that I did during this project. There was a lot of opportunities to document the process. So while they're performing, there will be all this visual performances taking place at the same time.
Very cool.
It's very ambitious, but why not?
And you have an Instagram dedicated to that project, right?
Yes.
When that's kind of an ongoing theme that I've seen with a number of your installations. I'd love to hear about your choice to make a dedicated channel for just talking about that over posting it on something like your own Instagram.
Yeah. I think, you know what? Thank you for asking that question. I was thinking about that. I started that Instagram when I started doing the project. So it was like in 2020, I created that account. And not only that, when I created that account, I created the accounts of different projects that I was running. And the reason why is that I was living my best full-time artist life. So I just had a schedule of different activities of all the projects that I wanted to tap into. Because we couldn't work. I was like, what are we going to do? So for me, it was like, I kind of want to start documenting this and have it organized and share the story with some people, but not going big yet. I don't want to like this energy to like just get lost, but I want to have the motivation of having to document in this format, because probably this will be the format that I can start to promote it if this turns into anything at some point.
Absolutely.
So again, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought it's important to document it and let me start to put it in here.
Yeah. So if our audience wants a little bit of a sneak peek at what might be coming up at the symphony, go check out that Instagram page.
Yes, exactly. Now that I have, believe me, there's hours. I'm recruiting people to help me with the video because I have a lot.
Well, community is a theme and something that you have talked about extensively, both here already in today's interview and so many places before. So I'd love to hear what's something that you've observed about the Lehigh Valley's sense of community that is decidedly different from other communities that you've been a part of.
That's a very interesting question. You know what? I'm going to be bold in my answer. I don't see a difference. I just see community. I think that, and we were talking about that earlier. I mean, I'm new in this area, if you may. But at the same time, being new gave me this perspective from the outside. And if anything, for me right now, I just see people that is interested in art. And, oh, you like that kind of art, and you like this one and that kind of art. And I just see that there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of people making the commitment to create that community. What I like is also the enthusiasm and the energy that is put into it. Not everybody's up to it. Not everybody has the willingness to get together during the week or but there's people out there that they do it and they will be there for you. And if anything, I realized that moving into this area, I had my friends and I had my relationships from different parts of my life, but I wanted to find community. And if there was no community to be found, I will make a community. That's kind of what I did with El Patio de Mi Casa. So I guess this is El Patio de Mi Casa 2.0.
Well, as a follow-up and maybe on the contrary to that, you've been part of many communities in the past. What is something about other communities that you've observed that you believe the Lehigh Valley would benefit from working to adopt, address, or implement?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the Lehigh Valley has taught me a lot. And I think that it's if anything, is to remind them that. It's like there's freedom in anything. I know that probably you have tried. Don't be afraid to experiment and explore. Don't be afraid to think outside of the box. Don't be afraid of doing it in a different way. You might be used to only wear that particular shirt, but maybe today you want to wear a long sleeve sweater, and that's okay. You learn who you are when you perform who you're not. So I think that if everyone embraces that, it will be a growthful opportunity for everybody.
In the past, you've talked about your love of light. And I would love to hear about that. I am also a huge light fan. James Turrell is one of my favorite artists. And so to sit in a room with someone who has such an appreciation for light is a joy. So I'd love to talk about light.
Before I forget, but this one, I love that you have the reference, because one of the things that I had the pleasure to do, not last year, but 2 years ago during a play and creativity retreat in Austria, is that we had the ability to see one of his installations.
Oh, amazing.
Wow. That's the only thing that I could say. Wow. Light and color, it has been always a theme in my conversation about my work. It could be reflected pictorially in a painting, but since I started to dabble into contemporary art, that was before coming into the U.S., I had great inspiration on Jesus Soto and Carlos Cruz Diez, that were two great international known Venezuelan artists that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s exploded with kinetic art and different installations in where the audience will discover themselves in a different version of themselves by just being bathed in color by light. So utilizing that and using that as a reference during the pandemic again, one of the projects that I had in the back of my head was, all right, I can either create a wall of flowers so people can come and see me, and we do social distancing, and there's this wall and we can be 6 feet apart. Yeah. But what else can we do? And I started to play with this idea of I want to create structures in where people can touch each other, but not really. It's just a wall of either glass or plexiglass, but it's the light that is coming through and is allowing that person to be bathed into the color that you're putting in that glass, and you're touching each other without touching each other. So it's like creating this chromatic moments. I love the word chromatic, as you see. but creating these chromatic moments that are just ephemeral because it's just when the sunlight hits. So I play with those little projects during the pandemic. I mean, I did an exhibition a long time ago in Venezuela doing this labyrinth of chromosaturation in where people will literally go through this journey in where they were alternating one chamber white and the other one being black. But in the white ones, they will be projected a color, and then throughout that journey, they will experience colors.
Yeah.
So based on that, I really wanted to retake those toys, if you may, from the playhouse and say, okay, so now how I do this with natural light. So I started playing with those with panels in small scale in our house, and then I started doing it in a window that the sun will hit for a great amount of time, and documented all those colors and how the transition of the sun will change the composition on the floor. And then I started playing it back in the studio to later on in my first exhibition with Ace, instead of showing a piece in the wall, I took over the windows because I wanted just to create the ephemeral moment of the composition on the floor. So it was not about selling the piece, it was about participating and creating a moment. But what is great is that project I brought into the school, and in the school I was able to create this art installation called the Chromatic Clock. So depending of what time of the day is, the light hits part of a composition that I created in the wall with my cousin, that it has different colors overlap. It almost looks like plexiglass, but it keeps changing. And of course, I'm describing all this with my hands and, fun times. But the composition, it's a geometric composition that changes throughout the day. But the lines change, or the alignment of the lines changes also on the wall. So it's kind of fun. That then took to the next level of installation that was creating the whole school that way. So I change all the colors of the standard fluorescent light are just covered with different colors. Wow. So it's an immersive experience to go into the school in general now. So you have a full hallway that is green and a whole hallway that is blue, one that is purple, one that is raspberry, one that is yellow, and the other one is like creamsicle. So it's like all the kids are like navigating themselves constantly in an immersive art installation.
Have you visited the Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia before?
Oh my God, I need to. Everybody says that I have to.
I
look forward to it.
What you're saying reminds me of an exhibition they had there with Rose B. Simpson called Dream House, and it dealt so much with
already has a place in my heart.
Oh my goodness, with shadow and light and windows, and if you haven't had a chance to look at it, definitely check it out
for sure.
Very, very beautiful. But it does have a definitive lack of color. Like it is not a purposely colorful exhibition.
But they're playing with light.
Yes.
But light is everything.
It really is.
Yeah. Light is everything.
Well, you were talking about projection a little bit there. And I want to use that as a jumping off point to talk about the piece that you submitted.
Oh my God, yes. So the name of the piece is We Know Who We Are, We're All Made Out of Water. This came about as I started transitioning in my job in the school from being the teacher to the arts integration teacher. Arts Academy Elementary, what they do, or one of the big projects that they do, or that we do, is that our 4th and 5th graders do a musical, and that's part of their major. What I mean by making a musical is, we have about 160 kids. If you want to sing, you will sing. I don't care if you sing well. You want to sing, you will be singing. You want to dance, you will be dancing. You are going to be an actor. We will find a way to put you on that stage, because it's not about an audition. It's not about finding the next, Broadway star. No, it's about encouraging people to hold a safe space for them to explore in art. So the musical, of course, you need to keep it within what elementary school, urban city can absorb. But we take, for example, in this one, we took the base of Moana, that is the Disney story of a Polynesian child and so on. So what we did is that we took that subject and we say, okay, so what's the plot of Moana? Moana, it's somebody from an island that is brave enough to leave the island to go into another place for their civilization, for their family, and their society. So, of course, right away, we connected with a local teaching artists and regarding henna tattoos and teaching them about the Polynesian culture and so on. But then as I'm looking at my students, I'm like, wait a second, this is the story of their parents too. Our inner cities students are from the Caribbean. All these parents took a leap of faith and jumped into another country that they didn't speak the language. They didn't know anything. So before they needed to learn about the Polynesian story of Moana, I really wanted them that their parents or that themselves were the sons and daughters of some Moanas. So what we did is that as part of the art integration, I also wanted them to learn about Nick Cage and their moving outfits. So instead of having this cookie cutter, perfect Disney custom design, I wanted them to see other things and start to think in a very abstract way. So our students made their own outfits that mimic water. And I took a lot of, and this is the part that I made a connection with the piece myself, I took all my shirts or button-down shirts that I used at some point for corporate America, and I actually also dyed them all in blue and cut them and gave them to the kids for them to be humans that also were part of the water. So the biggest lesson for all of us was they kept singing about knowing who they were, and they know who they are. So I wanted them to really know who they were. This is who you are. This is your parents. This is the history of your parents. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter from which island you were coming from. We know who we are. We're all made out of water. So the piece at the end, it was a projection of all these outfits made by the kids with the shirts that I once wore in this chamber in the community gallery of the Allentown Arts Museum, with a video of water just projecting into them and constantly washing them over. Especially also making an homage to all those families that currently still are lost just by trying to cross rivers to come into this country.
It said on the Art Museum's website that part of your passion for this project came from likening their experience to your own experience growing up and throughout your family's experience.
Yes.
Would you like to help explain to the audience any of that as much as you're comfortable?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I feel that I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from Venezuela, and I think that it was important for me to reconnect with all this again, because in a way, in order to keep going and moving forward, you need to put a lot of things away and compartmentalize them. But also I think that just working with the kids and working with the students and working with the community, putting all this piece together was also humbling and a great invitation to continue embracing vulnerability. And instead of being the teacher, it was more like, yes, we are all doing this together, and this is the biggest lesson in seeing how would you do it and what would it look like and what is the experience that you are getting.
Very cool. Very cool. So the image that you submitted with this,
Yes.
would you mind describing it for our audience?
Yes. So this one actually was a magical moment. And the image that I submitted is actually a very, very blue room, but a very dim light. In there, you will see the video of a shore, massive, that is, all over the wall, in where you can hear the water just blasting into the shore, that is being projected into this mass of fabric that it's also being moved with fans. So everything that is in this wall, that at the very beginning is really hard to describe what it is. It's just colors and different shades of blue and different shades of green. And then you notice the closer you get, you can see that it's just t-shirts that have been cut out, or pieces of fabric, or a lot of crystals that every time that the light hits it, it moves. So it's creating out of something that you will regularly see in a human body. It's dehumanizing it in a way and just blending it into the shore as we are all made out of water. Yes.
Beautiful.
And it has, this one in particular had and this one I took with my phone because I came to the installation just to check something, and 2 visitors in the museum were just sitting in this bench, enjoying and absorbing the whole installation. That was just priceless. And they didn't know who I was, and they didn't need to, and it was perfect. I just sat there and watched them enjoy the installation themselves.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned that the shirts and fabric were ones from your corporate America days.
Yeah. Some of my shirts were my corporate American cut them, and then the T-shirts were the ones that the kids sew and and had a lot of fun with them. Then they move when the reason why of those outfits is since they were gonna be water, I wanted them when they move to really move like the water. So it was not like a static thing. It was a lot of fringes moving around as they were water. But the students that were also not dancers, but were on stage, but they were not lead characters. They also had human outfits, but they were cut out with fringes, and everything was blue because at the end of the day, they were all made out of water.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's pivot a little bit and talk about fashion.
Oh my God. Yeah, Mr. D's passionate about it. I still don't know what I do with it, but I have fun with it. Yes.
Well, I love the outfit that you're wearing right now.
Thank you.
So let's keep up this audio description a little bit. How would you describe your outfit right now?
That's a really good question.
Or who are you wearing?
Yeah. Who am I wearing? I'm wearing myself. Now that I made it. No. No, you know what? It has been a journey also in the Lehigh Valley. I think that, and I mentioned this before, I think that my whole concept of creating something new, it has been also embracing the way that I'm presenting myself too. I think that, the museum and the community energized me so much during the fellowship and the community in being other voices that I think need more representation. I embrace my we, they, their, and everything that I want to wear. So right now, actually, what I'm wearing, it's a man's pants that are actually skirts with black that they look like a big skirt, and I love that. And also, I have almost like a little story that I'm describing with my outfit that is a garden in where a caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly. I feel that, if anything, the museum held a safe space for me to really learn that my queerness is sacred, and that because of that, anytime that I have the opportunity to validate that side of me and that side of many other people, I will have that. And I want that to be part of this ongoing project of showing representation too.
Who is the character Miss Spelling?
Miss Spelling. So Miss Spelling is actually inspired by my mother. My mother, Carmen, left Cuba, then moved to Venezuela, and then from Venezuela we needed to move here. And he was the leader of this chromatic revolution when I was writing little stories about it. Miss Spelling has showcased their self or themself. I'm still learning my pronouns, which is part of the vulnerability of this journey. Several times. I have portrayed Miss Spelling several times, if you may. If anything, what I like is that now is the right time to continue telling the story of Miss Spelling, a non-binary character that the only thing that wants us to turn on the lights and colors in the universe every day by needing bellotas guayo. So that's who Miss Spelling is. I think that is also an invitation to embrace vulnerability. I'm a foreigner. English is my second language. God knows I'm not really good at the first one. The second one, there's going to be some bumpy rides in my writing and my speaking, but my message comes across, and that's okay. I think that that's what Miss Spelling is. It's like an invitation to that.
You had mentioned before that you had got your degree in Venezuela, correct?
Yes.
And that was in interior design?
Yes.
What about the world of interior design taught you about how we interact with art on a daily basis?
That is a really good question. It did help in many, many ways. If anything, it showed me how art could be a product too, right? That is like,
Blessing
but
and
I get
curse.
it. It's like, yeah, we need to pay bills, right? No, but the world of interior design, funny enough, the world of interior design, what it really helped me was to develop community. I did learn that from there. It's a very strong community. That they support each other, may or not. But it's, if anything, gave me the opportunity to develop that skill that I'm aware that I have, that is social skills. So if anything, in the interior design world, it helped me to not be afraid of sharing a voice, but also not being afraid of supporting others' voices.
Yeah.
That I feel that even in social media, in the art world, still not everybody's brave enough to like share somebody else's work.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh no, I only put my things in Instagram. And I'm like, okay, that's lonely. In the meantime, I'm like, oh, I like this. I'll share it. Oh, I like this. Like, thank you for sharing. I have no expectations. You don't need to share my work. I like it. I want people to know that. And that's a little bit how El Patio de mi Casa came about. Because I knew also that I had a good network in the interior design world. So it helped me to invite those interior designers to be exposed to unique art. So if anything, gave me that base to support others in a capitalist way.
As a follow-up to that, and bringing this idea of play back into it, for our listeners that may have a hard time allowing themselves to play, I think that interior design's a really accessible place to start.
Yes.
What kind of a tip would you give to someone in using this idea of play with the interior design of the places that they spend their daily life in?
Yeah, rearrange, start to shake things up, move things around. That's a great example. And actually, it's so interesting because one of the things that I can say about my partner is that he's very successful in his work, but he's an amazing interior designer, even though he doesn't like to talk about it. If anything, in our home, a Venezuelan art installation that is running around, living, in the one that has the eye is him. But I think that his great success in creating this environment as a home, it's playing, and that nothing ever stays in the same place. It's like, every season we're going to rotate and put this chair in there and just shake things up a little bit. Yeah, interior design is a great place to do it. Get a different color pillow, or just put the chair in the opposite side. Even if you hate it, just try it.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you will move it back.
Yeah. I also think that appreciating or understanding interior design can also lead to, budding art collectors.
Yes.
It can be such
you'll be surprised. Yes.
I have brought this up to so many people, but one of my favorite things to do is watch Architectural Digest Open Door series.
Yes.
And it's funny to me how many times these celebrities have this group come in to talk about their interior design and their architecture. And what do they talk about?
Art.
Their art collection.
Yes.
They use it as just a soapbox to stand there and talk about all these artists that they know and love and are so excited to show off.
No, it's amazing. And actually, the interior design world has this amazing platform just to support art. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a business and so on. But a lot of them, they truly believe in the work of the artist. And they have their own art collection too. And they take a lot of pride on it. So, yes, that's one of the greatest opportunities. Like, put yourself out there and, don't go only to galleries to see how the work is displayed there. Go to homes where people is showcasing their work and showcase your own work in your own home. Take pride on it.
Absolutely.
And rotate it and move your own little gallery.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much.
Oh my God, no, thank you. I can continue.
On.
It's like it's never ending story. Chapter 2.
Well, before we end, you've referenced so many pieces of media, like
oh
in
my
and
God,
out.
Yeah, I'm like,
you've mentioned Simpsons in other interviews. You've mentioned Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Never ending story now. Tell me about the role of media in your creative process and just life.
It's nostalgia. It's all nostalgia. Yeah, and like in a very happy place. I mean, as I mentioned, I use the Phantom toll booth. I think that one of the greatest influence of something that you're going to see en el Muro de las Flores, or en el Muro de Flores, it's one of my favorite movies is The Blue Bird from the 1967 with like Jane Fonda and Elizabeth Taylor. It was a disaster of a movie in the 60s and trying to film with two like superstars in Russia. Of course they're going to kill each other and nobody knows about this movie, but it's like this over-the-top ridiculous neoclassic movie with like ballerinos and ballerinas jumping around. So I have a lot of references from that. The 80s have a great influence in my life, like, Care Bears and, Rainbow Bright, but He-Man too. I think that I'm a combination of those two. I'm a He-Man with Care Bears. But I think that, pop culture has a great influence as long as it's coming from a happy place of nostalgia.
Yeah. Moving out a little bit of American pop culture, tell me a little bit about Mafalda.
Mafalda! Oh my God! My mother is going to die when she hears that. Mafalda is incredible. She's from Argentina. And it was a political criticism. I mean, that's the power of Mafalda, is that it was a cartoon for adults. My Argentinian friends are going to be so proud that we're talking about this, or also indignify that I'm going to say something inappropriate about their queen, Mafalda. But Mafalda changed the world. Mafalda had the strength of an elementary school kid to ask the questions that society was not allowing to ask. My favorite quote of Mafalda is the one that my mom uses all the time. That is, and I'm going to butch it up in English, but it's like, the two of us graduated the same day, you as a son and me as a mom. So we started this job together, so we're learning together. But she had an amazing voice and really allowed a whole society to laugh and cope with what it was happening in the world at that time. So that's all I have to say about Mafalda.
It sounds like it may be a conscious nod to what you're looking to do as a teacher, as an educator, and as an administrator in the arts world.
Mafalda was the conscious of society. It was like trying to say, it's funny because I keep looking back into like the work of that artist and everything that he was capable to say just behind the little voice of an elementary school student. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is amazing. I mean,
for our listeners, where can they find you?
Oh boy. You can find me actually on Instagram. I think I have a really complicated relationship with Instagram. It's the vice that I want to let go, but also it's what has given me the opportunity to connect with people like you guys. Instagram is the best way to see me. This summer, I have a lot of great things coming down the pipe. And also, you're probably going to see me in the parks of Allentown doing things during the summer too.
Awesome.
Thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to another thing that you have going on this summer.
Yes.
We had talked about play and meditation, and you have so many of these amazing art sanctuaries coming up this summer.
Yes.
And I definitely want to point people to that. I think that'll be amazing and really exemplify so many of the amazing parts of this interview that we've covered.
No, thank you. Yes, Art Sanctuary was amazing. I did it for the first time last year, and it was part of a fellowship. This year, I want to come back to certain parks and do it. And again, I will let you know, guys, where the new sanctuary will take place, and come and play.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle, thank you so much for coming in. It was such a joy talking with you. This episode's opportunity is going to be for an open studio that Danielle is going to be holding in the early fall. Keep up with Danielle on social media and his website for more information about when this may be.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. Don't forget to like the podcast, leave us a review, and follow us on both social media and streaming services at Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast.